I'm Brandon.
And I'm Jesse.
We're Cannabis School. Having cannabis-infused conversations
with everyday people,
cannabis companies,
celebrities,
and your mom.
Welcome to the Sesh. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sesh. We have got a very good friend with us today, Narith. Can we say where you're coming from?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We're
Salt Lake City, Utah.
Salt Lake City, Utah. Yeah.
Utah. But please do.
Yeah, he's with Dragonfly, and we've been able to partake of quite a bit of Dragonfly. We made friends with them, and he was so generous. He brought us down to the grow.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah,
we got to see some really cool products.
Amazing product. We got to see the state-of-the-art facility, and we just hit it off so well with him that we needed to bring him on the show to give a different perspective.
And we've been loving all of Dragonfly's products.
Oh, it's so good.
So as you guys have seen across the show, we've used tons of Dragonfly products.
We continue to review them. I know some of you out there going, damn, I wish we had that here. But Narith, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you guys so much for having me here. It's an honor, being somebody who's an avid listener as well, too, just to be able to connect with you guys. And I think I remember telling you guys when we first met, I was like, wait, you guys are from Utah? How did I not know this?
Yeah,
right?
I know, right?
So, but no, I mean, likewise, man. I think anytime you meet people who really appreciate what goes into cannabis and really understands the challenges and the difficulties, the opportunities and the joy, man, you just connect. And I think that's what cannabis culture and community is about, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you guys for honestly being real, because you could be just sitting here blowing smoke, right? No
I mean,
intended.
hopefully
we
we'll
are
too,
going to be
so-
blowing
But
some
just
smoke.
stroking my ego over here. But you
No,
guys are
dude.
genuine. You guys are real about products. You guys wouldn't lie. And if it sucked, you'd be like, Narith, it's all right, man. Like,
Yeah.
and I probably wouldn't be here if it was just all right. So
Probably
says
not.
something.
Like, we've seen plenty of all right products
over
across the Utah
years.
market. And
Yeah.
I mean, I still see all right products. And so, none of them have come on the show.
No. And it goes to speak on the quality and the care. And what we got to see over there was this amazing process. And it's so scientific down to every drop of water that goes into these beautiful plants. I mean, it's the easiest way to be able to say it. It was gorgeous down there. Like, my clothes stunk so long.
Yeah.
And even after, my wife's like, just go put that shit out in the garage because it's
Oh, that's funny.
It's
See, I was
stinking up
trying
the
to
whole place.
rub it on all my other clothes. Like, is this like sent
This
to
is-
Brandon?
this motherfucker.
Like, oh shit, bottle this up.
I know, right?
Sell it.
No, but Nara, typically we don't want to do the typical, like, take us through your entrepreneurial career. But what I think is so fascinating about where you came from is not anywhere near the cannabis scene. Like, take us through that. Like, you talked about your brother, and your brother had some unfortunate circumstances hit him, and that kind of opened your eyes, and from what I understand, his eyes and the family's eyes, to cannabis. Take us through that.
Yeah, and I think, everybody who is involved in cannabis and has a passion for it, everybody's got that origin story, right? Like, what really flipped the switch from you just using it, quote unquote, recreationally to actually looking at this as real science and real medicine, right? And everybody has that moment. And for me, that moment came, in 2018 when my brother got into an auto pedestrian hit and run accident. And he was basically kind of left on the side of the road to die. And we were fortunate that there was an off-duty EMT that just happened to be there and was able to take him to the hospital, and he was able to survive, right, with a full recovery. But he had like a C6 spinal infusion. He has a metal femur in his leg, and
That's one
so
hell
it
of
was
a
a
challenge.
9-month
yeah.
recovery, right? And again, I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. I grew up here. I'm born and raised here, right? So losing friends and family to the opioid epidemic is nothing new here
It's
to
common.
anybody.
Yeah.
Very common. So when you see your family hopped up on a hospital bed there, that's the first thing that runs through your mind is like, I don't want my family member to be one of those statistics. physics. So that was a vow right there. And I remember very vividly, like sitting next to the hospital bed, right? And it's dark and it literally just happened, and all these emotions. I remember I was writing this letter to the person that hit them, and it actually got published in a letter. And that was my intent. I was just trying to jot down my feelings and like trying
express
to not,
something.
this anger that I had towards this person, and trying to find compassion and all those things. But anyways, in that moment was like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that he doesn't go down that path. And for that entire 9-month recovery, it was 100% medical cannabis edibles. 1-to-1 ratio THC to CBD edibles, right? And not a lot of people understand ratios and the differences and the impact of it. It's not just about getting high, it's about real pain relief. And I credit that to this day why my brother is here and why he didn't go down this other road, right? And his ability to maintain his mental health and his recovery, and to continue to have a positive outlook, and seeing friends and family and put this smile on all the time, like, nah, I'm fine, it's gonna be great, and when inside you're like, man, I don't think you can do that on other substances. I've seen other substances.
Well, you're foggy, you're not there, you're almost like just kind of a shell of the human that you once were, and nobody wants that. No one wants that for the people that they care about. To see them exist like that.
So that was a huge turning point for me. And in that moment, right? And, I was working in a professional career. I'll talk a little bit more about what I was doing then. But in that moment, it was kind of that switch of like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, how many other families are in the same situation as me, but don't have the resources, don't have the knowledge, don't even have the courage to knowingly break the law? Right? Like, that's what people have to do.
Well, because at 2018 it was. Right? We didn't have a medical program in Utah at that time.
We had families here in Utah that were moving to Colorado just so they could take care of their kids. Right? Because they couldn't safely and legally do it out here without fear of somebody knocking on their door, taking their kids away, judging them.
Yeah. And there was a lady whose 2-year-old, she moved out, Landon something, from Utah because of that. And she took him to Colorado because we didn't have a medical program. And he was given like less than a week to live because he had stage 4 cancer, basically.
We'll make him comfortable.
Yeah, and so she took him, and it's been 12 years or something, and he's still alive, thanks to medicinal cannabis, but it's just these stories. But how many people have had to, like you said, leave their home and try and venture out to another place to try and find...
And all we're talking about is accessibility.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. Like, people are going to always get access to the things that they want, right? So I guess
one way or the other,
as people, right, as business leaders, as regulators, as people in positions of government, to recognize and see these things, see that there are people literally leaving our state so they can just take care of their families because we're unwilling to view them as regular people. When I say regular people, is like, we don't judge somebody who gets Xanax and Valium, and opiates for their pain. That's very normal, right?
Or even Advil or Tylenol or aspirin, like any of those things that people are utilizing for pain as well. And yet we don't look at them and treat them any differently.
Well, and I will say something on the positive note, though. What I saw yesterday, I was in the dispensary yesterday over at Dragonfly. And while I was waiting to get called up to pick up my order, this gentleman who looked like he belonged in some LDS community, guy looked like a bishop, if you know what I'm talking about, it's an ecclesiastical leader. And he just, when he got up, I could see he was in pain. And I asked him, I was like, you here for pain? He goes, pain relief. He goes, nothing else has worked just like this. I said, good for you. I said, do you feel ashamed anymore? And he smiled and he goes, I used to, but I don't anymore because what it's been able to do for me. And you see that, like the people that come in, because I know this state has this very strange idea of what, it's like reefer madness, right? Pretty much like how it came in to be. Like it was just like, oh, you're going to throw your life away. You're going to go down the wrong path. You're going to start raping people and
listening to jazz music.
Yeah.
And then you're going to start having deep conversations. And, and then it starts going down a completely different
differently than what you're taught.
Exactly, right? You're going to chill the fuck out. But it's so cool because the people that you do see coming through every single day, they're not a bunch of your stereotypical reefer madness stoners. These are grandmas, these are mothers, these are fathers, these are sons and daughters who are going through what I've seen. And throughout, like all of Utah, and I mean, I'm going to give a lot of props to Dragonfly for what they do for their patients, because of the reason is I have never been treated in any way with disdain. It's always like, what can we help you with?
Yeah, I've been actually decently impressed with Dragonfly over any of the other pharmacies that we've actually
And I
attended
visited
here.
them. Yep.
But the funny thing, and I was thinking about this before Narith showed up, was, so I remember I want to say it was a 420 event, or like a little cannabis event that was going on in Salt Lake. And it was in this like downstairs area. It wasn't super big, but I remember that Dragonfly was going to be there, and all of these people who were in the cannabis space were nervous because Dragonfly was an investment group. When really it's a Vietnamese family that moved here and has started one business, started another business, invested in local businesses that they like. Like, it's not this massive, large investment group. It's a small family of people who have like been smart. I look at that and I'm like, well, grandma and grandpa were smart with their money, had lots of investments and properties and stuff. My parents do that. Like, how is that any different than any of these other local people? But it was this, oh man, Dragonfly's coming to Utah. It's this big conglomerate or whatever. And it was like, okay, but no, we look at it and who else has been here? The Block, Cannabis, Cureleaf. And hands down, none of those have had anywhere near as good of an experience, as much of like a care for the patient as what I found in Dragonfly.
Yeah, and that's, that goes a lot to the people that are involved in this. I mean, this is a family owned, run business on top of it to be able to create this. And they wanted to create something that was very unique, but also it was open enough to be able to accept cannabis culture.
No, I really appreciate you guys kind of teeing up and quite frankly, even just recognizing that, right? And the reality is, being an Asian immigrant living in Salt Lake City, right, is a challenge in of itself, right? So trying to fit in and make sure that people take you seriously and that you're legitimate and all those things, because you want to boil it down. Yeah, our team started out with the first Vietnamese pho restaurant in Utah, right?
Yeah.
Like back in the 90s when you couldn't find any ethnic cuisine out there, right? So at the end of the day, that's the roots, right? That's the roots of bringing culture, bringing community, bringing diversity. And what's the best way to share your culture with somebody other than through food, through your stomach, right?
Yeah.
That's look, that's the Asian way, man. You will never go to Asian's house and they will always have food. They will always have something. Hey, you hungry? You're not hungry? You're gonna have something. It's just
who
part
they
of our
are.
culture,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's what makes us unique is we have a very eclectic group of individuals that make up our team, right? We've got restaurateurs, people who are involved in hospitality. They know what it takes to create an experience where people love to be a part of and come back and talk to other people about, right? And then for me, I got an interesting background because I come from a very corporate background, right? Like I spent like 20 years working in the research and consulting world, working with Fortune 500 companies, working with some of the biggest companies on the planet, some of the biggest automotive
crazy
companies
discussion
on the planet,
on electrical vehicles on our drive.
Yeah, totally changed my mind.
All day long, right? But so I come from that background of just understanding how brand strategy works, how customer experience matters to your product, to your brand, right? And how to develop products that match and align with those things. So, man, you bring this team together that has this knowledge and knows how to take care of people, knows how people think, and can provide the things to people before they even know that they need it, right? Who knew that they needed a pharmacy that created a safe space that was a judgment-free zone, that was open and airy, not this like, hey man, I'm here for some cannabis. No, everybody can hear what you're doing. And that was designed intentionally because when you walk in the doors of Dragonfly Wellness, there is no judgment. We are all here for the same reason.
Yeah.
So it creates that warm vibe because guess what? Outside of the doors, there's plenty of judgment out there, right? We wanted to make sure that our core values, patient first, and that's something that's important in any business. If you don't have core values, you don't have a business. You just have a company that makes some money, right? You don't have a real brand, a real
Yeah.
company, because you don't know what your why is. You just show up to make money, right? And that's kind of, I think, the challenge that you see with corporate cannabis, right? Like, you got all these people that are coming in that, quite frankly, maybe didn't really care that much about cannabis, but saw the
Or even
business
use it.
opportunity
Yeah.
and don't even use it. How many executives and people at high levels that you meet in suits and ties and penny loafers at MJ BizCon, and they don't even touch the product. They don't even know what it tastes like or feels like, or
Yeah.
and they kind of sometimes just say ridiculous things where you're like, do you even know
Anything about this plant?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's funny because I met this woman, and she it was part of some networking group out in California, and she's in cannabis. She just does credit card processing, right? And she's like, how do I break into there? And I'm like, do you use the product? She goes, no. I said, not even CBD. She goes, no. And I said, then good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck,
Yeah.
because they don't that's what's really cool. It's not a snobby thing. It's when you are part of that community, it's like what we've talked about it many times on the show. It is the greatest uniter of anything. If you smell that and you just say, hey man, that smells pretty good, they will straight up share it with you.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't
"You
get
want a
that with
puff?"
food,
Yeah.
right?
Hey,
And
that
this is way more
cheeseburger smells delicious.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want a bite?
Yeah, you should have a
Like,
bite, dude. And it was just like,
It's
wow.
funny that you're bringing that up. I was literally talking about this 2 days ago with Lazy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we're talking about just, he's starting a foundation called Brilliant Life Foundation that's focused on mental health awareness, right? And you
Dude.
can imagine
Oh, that's cool.
coming from the streets of gangster rap, going from riches to fame, and all these things,
I
and the
used to
things that
listen
you
to
have
Bone
to
Thugs.
deal with, right? And just having somebody like him being vulnerable to talk about those things
Yeah.
was crazy. But we're talking about just how crazy that concept is, right? Where, man, like, I've seen prescription drugs and alcohol just tear families apart, but I've only seen cannabis bring the most different, diverse people together, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you're walking down the street smoking a J, and you're like, hey,
Dude.
can I get a puff? Like, you're gonna
Yeah.
share your germs out of somebody's mouth. I'm like, yeah, man, no problem, no questions asked.
Yeah, here,
right?
take a hit. It's
Yeah.
it's the instant connector across the globe, and it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who you are or what. It was like, oh shit, here.
Well, it's like what old school Marines were like. Because you meet these guys, like, it wouldn't even matter if they knew, and they know each other just by their walk, their look, and they'll just say, hey, brother, do you have a place to stay? Do you need anything? Do you need some food? Do you need money? Like, they truly believe that. And what I see in the cannabis community is not as extreme as that, but it is very close. Like, people will invite you into their home, saying, hey, if you do that, now we have this kinship. And that's how, like, and we appreciate what you said earlier, that we're real, because we always are who we are. We don't change just because, like, obscurely
Who's
this
around?
turned out to be
Yeah.
a really big success, and that's awesome. But the other side is, when you meet people within the cannabis community, I've yet to meet anybody fake who actually uses the product.
So when you know, game recognized game.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
something about this plant that once you get connected to it, it just changes your perspective, right? It opens up this door of curiosity, of questions,
Yeah.
of like, why have I been told all of these lies my whole life?
Mm-hmm.
What were we hiding? What were we keeping from people? What were we trying to protect people from?
Yeah.
Right? And
Right.
that starts, and that's probably the very reason, one of the reasons the government decided to ban all of these controlled substances, right? And you can
Yeah.
look back into Vietnam War, right, during that time in that
Yep.
area, where you had all these hippies running around and all these drugs, and they don't want to support the war, and they don't believe in America, and we shouldn't be over there, and blah blah. No, we can't let
Yeah,
them think
right.
like this. Boom! Here comes the Reagan era, right? Say no
Yeah.
to drugs, right?
Yeah, it was a huge.
And what did we do? We just locked up people in jail. We just threw people
We
into
still
jail.
do.
We just
Yeah.
crushed families. We did it.
We
did
talked
it, not
about
the
that.
drug.
On the last episode, or why it's illegal, or that one, and we basically, since the 80s, it was like there was an increase of almost 56% of incarcerated humans in the United States. And it's like, so you're telling us that either we've got 5 times the amount of population that just instantly dropped, or we've just got 5 times the amount of stupid people, or like what is it that we're, you know, what correlates to that?
Yeah, cannabis has always been around our civilization, right? For
Yeah.
thousands of years. You could date it back to, Chinese emperor dynasties back
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
using it for treating for gout. So to somehow think that all of a sudden there was just this influx of cannabis usage, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's wild. Again, when you start having those types of conversations and asking why, it's really powerful. And those are the things that I think connect and unite people in the community, because we know what this plan is about. We know what it can do to disrupt everything
Yeah.
in our system right now, right? Like this can help break down that system, right? How many people that are now cannabis users don't ever have to rely on traditional pharmaceuticals ever again? Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
For many
Drugs
things.
and have these prescription cocktails of just, taking one prescription after the next because, this creates another side effect. And all of a sudden you're on 8 pills and you're like, what the hell just happened? I just blew my knee out playing basketball. What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
So I think, again, when you realize that, you're like, there's something here. There's something here, right?
Well, speaking of something here, you have not been able to partake, so you need to warm that up. And actually, I wanted to talk about that if we're able to. So this is a new product that you guys are developing.
Yeah. So basically what this is a dry herb vaporizer, right? Nothing novel or unique at the end of the day, right? But what's unique in Utah to a lot of other maybe adult use states and even some medical states is smoking or combustion to flower is prohibited, right? Because we are a medical state, and I don't know any doctor that's going to tell you that burning something and inhaling into your lungs is going to be healthy and good for you, right? That's the reality of it. So
Right.
from a medical perspective, being able to safely dry herb vaporize, not only is it a healthier way to consume, it's a more efficient way to consume cannabis because you get greater bioavailability by dry herb vaporizing than you do if you're burning, right? Because you're just burning all that
Well,
material.
it's only like
out,
20
right?
or 30% maybe
Yeah,
of
less than-
bioavailability
yeah,
that you get total.
between 22 to 24%
Yeah, it's
bioavailability.
not
It's really
massive.
low. So yeah, that
It's
here
even
in
higher
Utah.
than edibles if you vaporize it.
Exactly,
Because
right.
edibles is only like, it's under 40%.
Well, and that's some of the things.
Edibles is actually less because from edibles it goes through first pass metabolism,
Yep.
right? So your body's kicking out all these other things, so you're actually getting less than you are through inhaling, right? So, but what's unique about edibles is it creates a metabolite as you
Right.
ingest it through your liver,
11-hydroxy.
right? Yeah, exactly. And it's 11-hydroxy THC is 6 to 7 times stronger than regular THC. So that's why most of the stories you hear about people getting really messed up and like, oh man, I took an edible. It's because you literally
Took way more than what you would have if you looked at the milligrams and you're like, well, this puff was only this. And you're like, well, the edible said it was this, but when you calculate it as 11-hydroxy THC, you're like, you're way higher milligrams.
super strong,
yeah.
right? It's like giving the analogy I use is like giving a 16-year-old the car keys to a Ferrari and be like, here, first time, go ahead, just drive it, right?
You've
It's
never
like,
driven before, right? Here, check this out.
Yeah. So that's really unique in of itself. But what I love about these dry herb vaporizers, honestly, is the efficiency, right? The efficiency, because at the end of the day, we're talking about medicine, and you want to be able to utilize every single cannabinoid and terpene of your medicine and not be wasting it because you're paying good money for this, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you'd be surprised how much cannabis you save and how much less you go through when you start dry herb vaporizing, right? You could sit and smoke a 1 gram J by yourself, no problem,
really fast.
and in this chamber is 1/3 of a gram, and I will still get the same effects, if not better, than smoking a 1 gram J. So that's what's beautiful about this, and having this dry herb vaporizer as well too. If you're a connoisseur of flower, I like to explain as if you're a connoisseur of wine and you appreciate all the different varietals and the different notes and tones and flavors that you get. Well, you're going to pick up on this. You're not just tasting smoke, tasting burnt.
Yeah.
You taste every single profile.
And the cool thing is with theirs, like their dry herb vaporizer has, a lot of them don't give a full temperature control.
Yeah.
It only gives you like 3 preset settings that goes on there. And this gives you a complete temperature range. And I don't know if you're allowed to, or I'm allowed to say the price point on it, but it's coming in at like $50.
Yeah, that's the goal. This still has not hit the market. We're
Yeah.
still going through the prototyping stages and everything, but that is the goal, to get this down so it's affordable for people, right? Because most of those dry herb vaporizers, entry level, that are mediocre, like you're still paying
$250 if you're
$80,
lucky.
$90 for like some of the G pens that are like just
Oh,
like
yeah,
really
that's
tiny
true.
and flimsy and stuff, right? But to get something really good,
Yeah,
you're
these
in.
are
I mean, that's
expensive.
$250. This one's $400.
This
you
one's
know.
$275. The air vape. I mean, it's very sexy. It's got all the temperature control. It looks cool, but it is the affordability, and especially right now, where a company such as like Air Vape, there's a lot that went into this. It's a heavy device. That being able to scale it down to availability helps people to be able to enjoy
And that's
more. of the
tiny.
plant. Oh
That's
yeah.
so much more
It's
portable
like a
than
flip phone.
any of
I'm
these.
gonna show
Yeah.
my age, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
like a flip
dude.
phone back in the day. Just put it
For
in your
real.
pocket and no problem.
Like the
carry it
little
around, right?
Nokias.
But the biggest thing is user interface, right? Making it simple and easy to use. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, of like how some of these other devices, you got to buy extra stuff and they're not designed. It doesn't seem like it's not designed for the user. And it's like, wait, who made this? How do you load, herb into your dry herb vaporizer, right? So all those things taken into consideration and making something that's easy for somebody who's just entering cannabis, right? So they know how to do it. And this is about as simple as grinding up a little bit of herb, taking off the magnetic top, dropping it into the funneled chamber that's in there, so none of your herb drops on the outside. It goes right into there, and then pressing the button 1 2 3 4 5 times, and it turns on.
Yeah.
And you have variable temperature. And why is variable temperature important? Because there are different boiling points for terpenes, right? And even cannabinoids, they all have different temperatures, right? So, if you just go straight to smoking and burning, you're at a very high temperature. So you're actually burning away a lot of the terpenes. And so you don't get a lot of flavor and taste when you're just smoking a J. But in here, you can adjust your temperature. You're talking, you start around 360 or so. I just buzzed. I'm at 380 right now. That's where I like to start. But most people, they might not get the type of vapor that they're used to when they're smoking a J. So they're like, I'm going to burn it at 450 degrees, which, I mean, you're still going to get the effect, but you miss out on a lot of the experience and the taste and the tones. So,
well, and you can always go up. So
exactly.
the cannabinoids that burn off at 380 don't burn off at 365, or don't, and same with the ones that burn off at 400 don't burn off at these lower temps. So you can still hit different temps and get different terps, different experiences from each stage that you go through.
Exactly.
And what's really cool too is that with the vaporizer, like I can sometimes get 2 or even 3 burns out of one bowl. And that's pretty amazing. Like that one time, long time ago, when we drove up to that cannabis event and we puffed on that PAX.
In the PAX. That thing lasted. We had like a 40-minute session on one bowl.
One bowl.
In a PAX.
Because the PAX didn't, I mean, I do like, where they've got time control so they get the most out of your bowl, but that thing just goes. Like, that's one thing I will say about the PAX was really cool, is it just goes. But other than that, like, as far as the flavor profiles, everything, it's the best way. And it's an easier way to go flower first.
Absolutely, right? Because it's simple, right? Because, look, there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to roll J's, right? They don't know how to do roll blunts or all those other things.
So I've been at least a decade into cannabis, and I can roll a joint, but I don't hand roll one because I've got devices that will do it. I've even had like the J rolling machine that I use because I've just never been good at hand rolling a J. I can hand roll a blunt just fine, but
pretty decent with the J.
I don't like smoking blunts, honestly. I would, if I'm going to choose that, I would much rather smoke a J because I don't like the tobacco paper. I'm just a fucking weirdo, but that's me. And so, like you said, a lot of people don't do that, and this is fantastic. You get such a wide range of flavors, of terps, and you can craft that experience depending on what temperature that you want on that.
Yeah.
So,
and that's huge. And we want more people to have that kind of experience, right? And how do you do that? Well, you got to make it affordable for people. You know what I mean? Like not everybody can go out and buy a $200 device, right?
Or $400 device.
Exactly.
So
right?
that's
even the
awesome.
cost of regulated cannabis is expensive in its own. And now you tell me I got to go buy a $150 device just so I can buy my $50 eighth. Like, hold on a sec. maybe I'm just going to go to my homie down the street. That's a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah,
easier.
for real.
And that's what happens every day. Those are the choices people make every single day, right? And that's the consumer psyche that goes through people's minds. We are wired to not do hard stuff, right? Like it's our fight or flight mentality. Do not go towards pain and heartache and challenge. Right? We go away from it. So people are always going to gravitate to what's easiest, right? And right now, what I'm super happy about here in Utah's program is we have over 81,000 patients in the program that said, I don't care about everything else. I'm going to jump through all the hoops. I'm going to go to my doctor. I'm going to get a card. I'm going to register, and I'm going to go get a pharmacist consultation. I'm going to go to one of the 15 pharmacies. Even if it's not close to me, I'm going to still do it. And I'm going to do everything harder than what it was pre-2020.
Yeah.
How many people are like, yeah, I want my life to be harder? Like anybody can call a friend or a homie that knows somebody who's somebody, and you've
get
got
a $25
cannabis, right?
aid, and you're like, cool. Well, now I don't have to worry.
Yeah. But for you to order online and get it delivered to your house from us, from Dragonfly Wellness in downtown Salt Lake City, you got to jump through hoops. And the amount of money that it takes you to even get your card in the first place, those are all just bottlenecks, right?
Yeah.
Challenges and barriers for people, because I can promise you there are more than 81,000 people in the state of Utah with 3.5 million people that are using cannabis right now.
100%.
In fact, I was just in Wendover a couple of weeks ago at Deep Roots Harvest at the border of Wendover and Utah. Every single car in the parking lot
had Utah plates.
Utah.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, I don't think that they were building a dispensary in the middle of the desert for Nevada residents.
No.
So
it's not. It's
right?
Utah ones. It's like same when you go to Dinosaur or you go to these other ones. They have 3 dispensaries in Dinosaur, Colorado. Yet that town is tiny. I don't even know if there's 1,000 people in that town.
Dude,
there's no way they need.
There was a dispo that was like one of those tough sheds. It looked like a tough shed.
But 100%, it is just built on the edges of these states for the other states that they're like, yeah, all of these people are just going to come here.
Yep. Make it more convenient for them.
And it's wild. Why, again, accessibility. Why are we forcing people to drive hours across the border, break the law, bring it back, when we could make it more accessible here, right? And I know, I'm sure there's people listening like, Narith, you're a Dragonfly. You're the one charging these prices, man. You're the problem.
But again, it's not. Like, it's all of the trickling down of the system, and we discussed it. Like, there is no tax, like you basically don't get tax breaks as a cannabis business. You pay all of your income, everything is taxed at the beginning. And then, like after you've done it all, then you're like, cool, what do I have left? Yeah. Versus like companies who write off all their taxes, get all of these tax breaks, and then it's like, cool, well now we have 40% more income to basically work with. And you have every cannabis company who's like, well, we have 40% less income that we're working with, and we've all got all these same margins. So it sucks because like Utah has tons of regulation, but yet, and it's still like no system I look at, I feel like is perfect. But I feel like we are trying. But again, there's a lot of misdirection, I feel like, with our actual system, because we've talked about it. Like there's a lot of things with our medical program that are treated almost like it's a recreational thing still. And yet everyone who is in there is strictly for medical. And even like the allowed conditions for medical is incredibly closed-minded for our state to go, hey, this is medical, but like, okay, well, there's proven value for all of these things, but we're going to make it really hard for you to get it unless you have chronic pain. Okay, well, anyone can have chronic pain. So does that mean that we just have every single person in Utah going, hey, I have chronic pain. Hey, I have chronic pain.
That's exactly what happens. What the statistics of the medical cannabis program here in Utah are, 80% of all medical cannabis patients are qualifying under chronic pain. When you have a whole laundry list of other conditions, right? And what happens is when you create this tiny avenue for people to get access, people want to be legal. Trust me, people don't want to look over their shoulder and worry about what's going to happen to them if their kids are going to get taken away, if they're going to get pulled over, right, and go to jail. Like for possessing something
For using
that
medicine.
if the next state over, you could go buy it just like you buy alcohol,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Real easy.
it's wild to have that juxtaposition for people to be in. And basically what we're doing is we're telling people to lie.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you want to use this for something else. Maybe you're suffering from anxiety, maybe with some depression, but guess what? Those are not qualifying conditions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only PTSD is.
And that's if
And
you have like a history
Well,
with
getting
a
qualified for
psychiatrist and that.
PTSD is a real thing. That's not
Yeah.
something you just roll in, doc. Hey, can you tell me I
No,
have
there's a lot of
PTSD?
testing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way, right? So think about that. You just left out 30% of our population. And why do I say 30%? 30% because this is not a great statistic for Utah to be number one in, but we are number one in mental health related issues
Yeah.
in our
I
community.
believe it.
We are. It's 100%. Look it up. Just Google it. Right. It's tough to accept that fact. Right. When you kind of look around and you live here and you're like, God, we have such a beautiful state. Right. We have such a young, vibrant community. We are also the youngest demographic in the nation. The youngest.
Yeah, Mormons
Number
multiply like amoeba.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Go to Costco, man,
Did.
on a Saturday.
2,
Woof,
4, 6.
right?
Yeah.
But it's wild. It's wild when you just stop and you just look at those statistics and you ask yourself, why?
Yeah.
Why? What is going on here in Utah that puts us number one? And there's a lot of factors, and we could get into that conversation if the conversation takes us there. But mental health is a real thing in our state. And basically what we're saying by not having qualifying conditions that include those people, good luck. Go through the traditional route. Go get your prescription drugs. Go get your anxiety medications. And those, just because they're legal, does not mean they are good for you.
Yeah. Have
Oh,
less
exactly.
side effects or less concerning issues or something.
Well, and it's short term. It's not something that's going to affect you long term.
It's a
I
band-aid.
mean, if you what's really nice about that, and especially those who could qualify for this, those who don't qualify for it, they don't really have any guidance, and there's not really anything you can say other than what your experience is. Is some of the reasons why this podcast has been so successful, because you can live vicariously through us and what we're consuming, going, yeah, I feel this. Like one of the funniest reviews I ever said, like this guy put down was, I love listening to this even when I'm out of bud, because I can virtually smoke with you guys and
have a sesh.
and have a sesh. Like you guys described the feeling enough. I'm just like, yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. Like, damn, dude, that's that's
ASMR.
sad. Right? That's sad. But at the other time though, that's what we need, those programs open and available to those individuals who are suffering in more ways than, bad back, bad joints, whatever, fibromyalgia, which is pretty and it's, I know autism is on that as well, but that's it's not even close as frequent as it should be leveraged. And it's, I work with this functional medicine clinic, and working with them, one of their doctors just like, yeah, I'm actually going to get this kid. The only reason why they can put him on that one's because he qualifies through under autism. That's it. But it's mostly severe depression and anxiety, like suicidal ideations. And she's like, I'm going to give this a go. I was like, wow, that's cool. Let me know how that, let me know if the parents buy it. Because I think that's another difficult thing, is the education for the public and letting them know that this isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we just need to be able to do more of, right? Is that education side from everybody, right? From people like you guys, people like us that are running operations, our government bodies that have supported this program, right? And are regulating this program. That there is more that we could do to educate people. Like, we have a program here and it's working for 81,000 people. Why aren't we on the rooftops shouting about it? right?
Yeah.
And talking about it. And sometimes I don't think that the medical cannabis program gets the credit it deserves. And one perfect example I'll share with you is at the end of last year, there was an article published from Intermountain Healthcare where they basically were looking at data and opiate usage data between 2019 to 2023. And between those years, there was a 30% reduction in opiate usage.
Interesting.
Huge, which means less opiate usage, less opiate addiction, less opiate deaths, less
Yeah.
people are dying in
And
our
we
state.
have a massive overdose issue with
Huge.
opioids. Like
Huge.
Utah has a
We're top 5 in suicides
Yeah.
as well too, and those aren't just intentional suicides, right? Some
Yeah.
of them are accidental in some cases, right? So, but these statistics are stunning that they're here, and we literally have the tools right in front of us to help. And by no means, and I'm saying the cannabis is end all, the solution for everybody, because everybody's body is different.
Oh yeah.
But man, it sure helps a lot of people
It's a
without the
great
side
tool
effects that
to
other
have in
people
your
have,
toolbox. Yeah.
right? But back to that 30% is, what was the credit that IHC gave for this 30% reduction? It was education, right? We told people about this, right? We educated doctors about the risks of opiates. Well, kind of, you'd be like, well, shouldn't you have known that already? And the short answer is we did. Anybody who knows anything about Purdue Pharmaceuticals, Sackler family, and the story behind opiates, you would know that it was all a cover up and lie.
Yep.
FDA had all this information. So that's a whole other
It
conversation
exists.
we can talk about. But yeah, give credit to that. Oh, it's the Know Your Scripts program, right? It's because, we had this thing to talk to people and we were able to reduce it through that. Not one mention about our medical cannabis program that started in 2019.
Yeah.
Not one.
Huh.
And again, why aren't we on the rooftops shouting that? So those are one of the things that I'm working towards as well too, is collecting the data. Because at the end of the day, data doesn't lie, right? People lie.
Yeah.
People have opinions.
Yes.
People misread data, but the data doesn't lie, right? And what the data will show, and it's going to show that there's a very direct correlation between medical cannabis prescription usage and opiate prescription usage, right? And this study was done in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, right? This was originally done over there where I first met MSA, Management Science Associates, right? It was the data analytics company that we're working with to be able to do this. They did that exact study. This is how they actually found me. I was speaking at an event at one of the cannabis conferences, and one of the gentlemen that was from their team approached me after, said, "Hey, I really connected with what you were talking about and your goal towards focusing cannabis as medicine and trying to find solutions to our opioid problem. And we have something to share with you." Right. And in Allegheny County, they did that exact study where they were able to take medical cannabis pharmacy data and pair that with EMR data, electronic medical records, right? You go to the hospital, the doctor writes a script. It's in an electronic system. They know all of this prescriptions, especially if it's a controlled substance. Doctors are required to have these licenses. So they know you're taking these medications that are out there. And they were able to show a very direct correlation because you can see the people that were once using opiates and are now consuming cannabis. And voila. So we're on this journey to make sure that everybody knows. It gives cannabis the credit that it deserves, that this is real medicine and it is healing people, despite what your belief is, right? And at one time you could say because it's federally illegal, you can no longer say that because the DEA just recommended to reschedule cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Yep.
That is monumental.
Yeah.
How are you going to argue that now? Now you got to, well, you could probably argue and say, well, I don't believe in the government, which is easy to do, but you can't use that scapegoat anymore.
Yeah.
And say it's illegal. That I don't want to. Well, somebody that's smart enough to provide data and information, the Department of Health and Human Services of the United States provided that recommendation to them that because Schedule 1 states no medicinal benefit, and we all
highly
know
addictive, and
that you cannot stand on any leg if you want to try to make the argument and says has no medicinal benefit. So it does not belong on Schedule 1. That is huge.
No. And I mean, I know, it's just passed. I mean, it's not going into effect right now. They still have time for individuals to appeal it, to be able to bring it back, which could slow it down, but it is moving forward. That's one thing that is clear. It is moving forward. But with that said, and being in the business as you are, what do you see happen to rec states? What's your opinion?
Oh man, I mean, look, let's look at the current landscape of how our healthcare system works right now, right? Like it is all one integrated system, right? With pharmaceutical drug companies who work directly with insurance companies, and those insurance companies working directly with the hospital networks. It's all one ecosystem
Yeah.
that is very difficult to crack, right? And the nature of that is that these big companies are big companies and have a lot of money. Right. And they need to, because they have a lot of liability as well, too,
Oh,
because they are
massive.
providing prescription drugs for 300 million Americans, right? So that's a lot of people. That's a big market that you got to take care of. So but these big pharmaceutical companies also have the deep pockets to go through clinical trials. Like clinical trials are 5 to
Expensive.
7 year
Yeah.
periods, and you're talking millions of dollars to be able to do that. Man, I don't know a lot of cannabis operators who even have $1 million, right? Because back to that whole challenge, only 25% of cannabis companies are actually profitable. The other 75% are just hanging on by a thread, are just in it for the passion because they love it, right? But that is a huge hurdle to be able to jump over, right? When you think about that. So this system is built to not break. So how do you create cannabis products that are now FDA approved if you're just Dragonfly in Salt Lake City, Utah?
Jeez.
So
Double-edged sword there.
what does the future of that actually look like if you're an adult use state and people aren't getting an FDA approved product? Only FDA approved products are going to get covered by insurance. So now you've got the likes of big pharmaceuticals that already have purchased cannabis companies. You can just Google Pfizer and Arena Pharmaceuticals. You can also look up patents that have already been placed for cannabinoids-based products.
Yeah.
So now it's just a race for who has the most money to get to the first clinical trials, to have the first patent that nobody else
Can copy then because they hold the patent. So then, unless they find a different cannabinoid or create their own version of something different, and then again, that becomes a patent, and then
that's
no
a
one can do
7-year
that.
period.
Yeah.
So we know that maybe that there's something magic in this strain here that could really help people with their mental clarity and their focus and their mood, and something that maybe they wouldn't have to rely on an Adderall or something, right, to get things done. And you're happy and uplifted and connected and engaged and having amazing conversations with people. That's what I feel like right now with this. How am I ever going to patent this?
Yeah.
Do you guys have, $50 million I could borrow?
Let me pull that.
You guys got to record a lot more
Where
sessions,
you've been
man.
hiding it, huh?
But
Yeah.
that's the game that we're talking about right
Keep it
now,
safe.
right? So this is what I'm saying to these adult use states, that it's going to be very difficult to compete in a Schedule 3 space.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
So the
Does
question
that
becomes,
create a separate, like, do they open up and have it be a medical and then a rec version of like, well, there's medical for that, but then if it's rec adult, but again, there's still adult use. Like, do they just play outside of that realm of like, hey, it's been Schedule 1, so that's kind of the realm that it's already been in?
I think you'll probably see that because, to think about adaptation in there's going to be FDA approved cannabis products. But again, it's going through those clinical trials. So for right now, I think, and this is just a hypothesis on my side, they're just going to kind of let things run the way they are. They're not going to, I hope that Utah doesn't change to a rec state, because I've seen what happens there, and it's extremely poor quality
I just
product.
want better qualifying conditions, more qualifying conditions.
Yeah, I want more
and
regulations on
better access. Because again, when you're in a medical state and it's classified as a medicine, if you're only having 15 pharmacies in your entire state, in this size of a state, where it can take over 8 hours to drive from one point to another in certain areas, like, that's a long ass time. You have to give your patients way more access. So either the ability to do like homegrown or giving way more pharmacies, because it limit the like, and again, maybe not every product is FDA regulated, but there still needs to be a higher set of regulation because we still see subpar products like everywhere.
Well, and it kind of goes to say like what we were able to see at their grow, like state of the art, everything from water to lighting to timing,
The minerals,
to the drying
nutrients,
process,
everything
to the
was-
trimming. Like it's very, very, it's so well orchestrated to be able to get you that final product, like what we're smoking on now. Like it just,
Pure magic.
yeah, man. It's something that we don't see enough of, and that's where other rec states kind of get away with everything. Like we talked about with some of your guys over there, they were just like, yeah, in California, they've got testing labs everywhere, and they'll fudge and they'll fudge the results too. They don't
Yeah.
care. You just pay them.
That's one of the things that, again, our program doesn't do enough to give ourselves credit for that, of how great of a quality program and quality testing we have here. Because when you see the COAs on ours, on our products, they are actually true percentages, not dry lab results, which is what happens in every adult use state out there. Like, it is the pay to play game. There's that many labs out there, and if you're not willing to give a good test result, they're just going to take that $30,000 of business somewhere else. And you as a lab got to make a decision. Do I stay in business?
Yep.
Or do I do the right thing? And most people choose to stay in business.
Yeah.
And that's tough, right? But for us, you know, when you walk into a Dragonfly Wellness pharmacy, that you are going to get those potencies and you're going to feel it. And I think that's a huge reason why you guys are like, yo, Dragonfly flower hits different. Because you could go buy 30% boof anywhere in Colorado, in Nevada, you get it all day long. But is it truly 30%? How like, it is.
You go there and it's like half of their stuff is 30%. You're like, no, it's not.
Wow, you guys found the secret sauce.
Like,
or
bro,
something,
who's your
right?
grower?
But,
Like, hook
it is
me up.
very difficult to get flour above 30%. Right? Like that is an anomaly. So it's wild. It's wild that you see that consistently in other states that are there, and then you try it and you're like, that was no different than the 15% that I just, that I just had. And that's the anomaly there as well too, is that this focus on THC and potency,
The highest percentage.
That's why I appreciate what you guys do, because you give a platform and a voice for the other things outside of the one major cannabinoid, right? And you give the love to the terpenes, right?
That's why this strain that we're puffing on, or have been, is actually one of their grows, and it's not out yet, or just about to be out.
It is about to drop next week,
and it is
you guys
magic.
are getting an exclusive.
Like,
sure.
It is a high CBG strain, and it has been,
I feel very toasty.
Like one of the best experiences that I think that we have had.
Yeah.
Would you guys say you're less high or more high than other strains that you normally?
I'd say I'm right now. I'm more. I feel really good though. Like it's so much that I'm super relaxed, but I'm very aware. And that's kind of a unique thing, because some sativa strains, and again, it's going into the percentages, like it's not about the high percentages. When we started this podcast, like it was primarily carts, and
there was a good amount of carts. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like it was rare when we had flour on. Now it's like flour all the time, but we enjoy the flour just because of how it hits. It just hits different. And with the carts, it was always about the high percentages. Now I just don't have the palate for it. Well, some of them for some times.
Most of what we were doing, like at the beginning, wow. Oh, yeah. Most of it was disty.
Yeah.
When we first started, there was a lot of just most lead distillates across the market. And so when I was going out to Denver and getting carts, it was all distillate. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that we started seeing more of the live rosin coming into play. And that was just kind of, I think, what changed the game, because before that it was like, what is your highest THC experience? Because they really, when it's distilled all the way down, you don't get the terpenes, you don't get anything. So it's really just more of like here, this is going to make you feel something. And, I mean, it did, but it wasn't the best.
But yeah, exactly. You're not being able to fully get that experience. And that even goes to now where I feel that consumers are going more towards high quality anyways. They're asking for high quality. You're going to have those guys drinking the Canadian Host plastic jug, always on sale at the liquor store, whiskey. You're going to have those people in the cannabis world too. Yeah. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're like, I just want to get fucked up. Like, all right, cool. I mean, if that's your game, that's cool. That's why those the adult use states, I don't like where those markets have gone. I just feel that they've just given subpar product and that people just don't know any better. It's like people who use like Delta 8. Though.
I think it really comes down to a not being properly educated on like the quality of the product, the experience. Same with Delta 8. Most of the people that use it, and
they just don't know any better.
And usually it's people who don't consume real cannabis. So they've been introduced into it and they're like, well,
this gives me a feeling.
This because my friend said I should try it and it's not weed, so it's okay. And then they try it and they're like, well, I like this feeling. But for anyone who really uses cannabis, it just feels like synthetic fake.
Yeah, it's gross.
It's a gross experience. But for those who have not really had the other, I feel like they look at it and go, ooh, this is a nice experience. And maybe it's a good segue for them. But if they actually had tried like the real plant, I bet they would struggle going back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's why, dryer vaporizing is seriously where a lot of this needs to be going. I mean, I'm not against burning the plant. I enjoy it. I enjoy a bong. You guys know that. We love our bong.
Oh, yeah.
George Jetson. Yep. And it's an awesome, it's a great experience, but this is the cleanest experience. Even when I went on my tea break for over a week, right? Like when I did that, I did notice before that, because I was doing a lot of bongs, and I started to get real, like a little, like a lungs. Wheeze sometimes. Mm-hmm. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
But not with the dryer. I mean, I'll cough because you really get those terps at first, and it just hits your lungs. Just, you're like, whoa. But after a little bit,
it still can be hot on your lungs. Like I will still cough sometimes. But I do like the ones that have the adapter that can go down into a bong, because using a dryer vaporizer through a bong, holy cow, that is a whole nother level.
It is.
Yeah.
And so many different unique ways to consume cannabis, right? And there's going to be more, right? There's tons of other products that are out there. You guys have tried so many different products. So that's where the hope is. That's where the hope in the future still is for the adult use side of the other states is you can do your 7-year trial and make this one specific product for this one specific condition, right? Because that's how regular medicine works, right? You got to prove for one very specific indication that this is going to work for.
Right.
But the sky's the limit everywhere else, right? And to your point you were saying earlier is, look, we are the United States of America, 50 unique states that can make whatever rules they want in their own states, despite what the federal government does.
Right.
So there is still hope, but that doesn't happen unless people like us get involved, right? Get involved and have a voice, and get involved in our community, and get involved with our legislature, right? And let them hear that this is something that's important, and we want to make sure that it's done the right way. Yeah. Right. And it goes across the board from every single angle, that we don't have companies that just coming in here for just profit, that have no interest in our community here at all. Right. Like, what are the decisions that are going to be made when your headquarters is in another state? You have no idea what is going on right here in Utah County. You don't. So there's a big difference between finding companies and brands and people that truly care about the people that they're serving. And you see that happens in dispensaries and pharmacies all over America. But I can tell you, those are the ones that are just hanging on by a thread right now.
Right? Yeah. Well, I feel like
And a lot of them have already exited, right? Like
Yep.
California, man. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to see that, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough to also be here, a guy that's only gotten into the cannabis industry in the last 5 years, to be like, man, those are some big shoulders that I got to be able to stand on, that elevated us, right? To us even have an opportunity to even have a conversation, for you guys to be in 80 plus countries and people listening to what we have to say. It's wild.
So, with Utah, what do you see changing here?
Well, I think the hope with Utah is that if it's a Schedule 3, it's going to be treated like any other medication.
I mean, it should already.
Right? So that means if your doctor, not a doctor that had to go through some special training to learn about all, cannabis and 4 years of school. No, it's like you could prescribe all of these medications, right? So cannabis is now medication. You can prescribe it to your patient. And actually, if your patient came and asked you and said, I actually prefer this over these other things, it's actually your duty to serve your patient, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have some other reason why, and it can't be that it's illegal anymore. But right now, that's the challenge for doctors, because there's not enough research and data. And when I do that, what I mean is clinical trials.
Yeah.
That's what Big Pharma gets to do for us, at least, right? They get to spend the money to show to doctors that they can say, yes, THC and CBD does work for this. Yes, it is okay for mental health related diseases, right? Yes, there is no known lethal dose of cannabis,
Right.
and you could die if you accidentally take too much. As a doctor, I think I would kind of like that, to prescribe you a medicine that you cannot die from.
Well, they've already done animal studies for that, and they have the guesstimated dose of what it might be, but it's all hypothesized.
It's like a truckload.
Yeah,
I mean, it's ridiculous.
It was between 10 to 15,000 1-gram joint smoked in a 15-minute period might kill a person.
I think there's got to be
I think
a
that would
Guinness
kill
World
anything.
Record for that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
Just the
Like,
CO2 alone, and they
But
just suck all the
It's
air
like
out.
you would pass out long before you ever got to that
Yeah,
point. Like
well,
I don't know how that's possible, but whatever.
But yeah, that's the hope that I see, right?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? More accessibility.
Yep,
More
Yeah.
accessibility.
that's what we want.
And guess what? If there's more patients in the program, and now these 15 pharmacies are inundated with patients, somebody's out there is going to have to say, yeah, I think we might need some more pharmacies out there. Because trust me, there'd be Dragonfly Wellnesses all over Utah if it was up to us, right?
Right.
But there's very specific laws and rules and limitations, and that's part for making sure that we do this the right way, we control it in the right way, we collect enough data and evidence and research to make sure that we do the things methodically. And those are the things that I do appreciate about working with our regulatory bodies and our legislators, is that they're not just like, let's throw this cap, let's go, whoa, adult use, all right, everybody can just have it. No, we got to do this smartly, right? Because it's also irresponsible for people like us to sit here and say there's no problem with cannabis, it's perfectly fine, right? There's no risk of addiction, or no risk of
Any
just
negative
being a
side
bum and
effect,
losing your
or
job. Like, come on,
Yeah.
those are stereotypes for a reason. Like, everybody is different, right? But to put everybody in the same box, that's just unfair. Right?
Yeah,
So
it totally is.
that's where the hope is, that it's just going to be easy for somebody who's like, dude, like I have a freaking toothache, or I freaking my arm, I broke my arm, and
Yeah.
doctor gave me pain medication. I'm like, I'd much rather just go to Dragonfly and get a chewable tablet. That's it's way easier, right?
Yeah.
And those guys are actually nice and they care. It's way funner than going to a pharmacy at Walgreens or Smith's.
Yeah.
Which
yeah,
is
for
this is a
reals.
funny story, right? Like that's an interesting story as well, is like how easy it is right now to just get access to prescriptions, right? Like
Mhm.
my little brother broke his elbow. He slipped outside of my parents' house after he got done shoveling. There's
Oh,
just
man.
walking, boop,
Yep.
poof,
Oh.
broken. Anyways, I had to go pick up his prescription for him, right? And I just, this piece of paper, that says hydrocodone. All right, cool. Walk up and they're like, okay, do you have ID? I'm like, yeah, here's my driver's license. Okay, we'll call you when it's ready. I was like, all right,
That's it.
But
okay.
you don't. The
And then-
interesting thing is,
yeah,
you were saying,
yeah.
so Utah doesn't allow you to do that with cannabis.
No, you
but
can't do that.
with even that, you could have like a care like a qualifying care provider for you.
Yep.
And they'd still have to go through all these crazy hoops. But yet, even with that, you don't have to be their care provider to pick up their prescription. You could literally be just anyone going, hey, I'm here to pick up this prescription. Here's their date of birth. Here's my ID. You don't have to have any
She didn't even ask who I
association
was in relation to the person at all.
at all.
And I had an ID, and I'm Asian. I could have used
You could have been their
else,
Uber
and I could have been
driver
somebody else, and they're
showing
like,
up.
"Who's this Asian dude? Yeah, that looks like you. Go ahead."
Yep.
That
Because they're like, oh, I can't tell the difference anyway.
Exactly.
Because
Y'all
they're
look
like,
the same to me.
they're terrible.
It's like, oh, thank you. But then, yeah. So this is where the story gets funny. And then, yeah, as I'm waiting for the prescription, right? They're about to hand to me. And they're like, okay, that'll be $7. I was like, okay, $7, get the prescription. And then I was about to walk away thinking like, oh my God, I feel like I had to do something. She's like, oh, hold on real quick. The pharmacist needs to talk to you. I was like, okay. So I stand there, and then this old Chinese guy comes out of the back, pharmacist dude, because I was like, so these only use these if you have to, okay? Because they can be addictive. All right.
wow.
Like, that was it. That was the disclaimer, So at least he was trying. At least he was like, I appreciate that, right? But that was it. Man, if it was in the cannabis space here for you to be a caregiver, the first thing you got to do is you got to apply, and then you have to get a criminal background check, right? To make sure you're not some drug dealer.
But what's funny, like, why, like, what if you don't have a criminal background, or what if you don't have anything on there? Say there's nothing drug related. Do they decline it still? Or does that even play a factor in it? Because you could still be their patient, like their caregiver. Yeah. So who else is supposed to pick up that patient's medicine?
Yeah. So there are just these things because of the federal illegality of it, right? So that's where sometimes it's frustrating as an operator in the business to be like,
do you know anyone buying Utah products to turn around and sell them? Because no offense, I don't think anyone outside is paying from their plug $50, $60 an eighth, plus adding on a margin of markup. Like, who would ever buy a Utah product to turn around and go, hey, I'm going to sell this to make money?
No, it's treated like medicine. It's yours.
What if you didn't have a qualifying condition and you wanted safe, legal product and you couldn't buy it?
Yeah, it's hard.
What would you be willing to pay? So your answer is yes, there are people that are doing it right now.
Oh, man.
Right now. And, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So, yeah, we've actually had issues where people were passing off Dragonfly product as, or packaging and things like that, right? But
they're trying to mimic Dragonfly products?
Right? So that's a cool flattery, right?
Yeah.
To the point where we had to get investigated to see if, like, whoa,
is this your product?
Is this really happening, right? Because you got to do due diligence. People make reports. You got to check and make sure it's legit. But, yeah, and we're like, no, like we don't even use those jars. We don't do all these things. But it's like those are things that are happening because people don't have access. People are always going to get what they want to get. Doesn't matter, right? Man. But at least here in the state of Utah, if we've got operators here that are growing good quality medicine, and we know that these are accurate results, and we know that all of these products are full panel tested, that they are free of pesticides, free of heavy metals, free of solvents, right? All of these things, and you can put that into your body. Why wouldn't we want people to have access to that versus what you're getting on this street that could sometimes potentially be laced with fentanyl?
Yeah, they have
and
no
I'm not
idea
just making this up. This is a thing. Right? Like this happens. There are ER report visits of this happening in our own communities. Yeah. So we, again, have the tools at our fingertips to solve some of our biggest problems in our community, whether it's mental health, whether it's suicide, whether it's addiction, right?
Yeah.
All of these things. And the keys are right here. And we just need people to wake up and realize that what we've been told our whole life.
I think that's really hard. I mean, especially like we live in a religious culture here. Looking at any of those things, people oftentimes don't want to question anything or look at something and go like, hey, there's maybe some basis that might not be, someone maybe lied to me. That's hard, especially if it's on a religious, governmental, like my parents, whoever it is, someone that you are supposed to look up to or trust in that avenue, it's hard to go, hey, they lied to me. And how many people even want to look at that and question and go like, oh, was I lied to, or is it just like all these stupid hippies, you know? And then what gets pushed out? Well, like you said, there's IHC that puts out, well, we've had this much reduction in opioids and we credit it to education and this and this. And it's like, but the time frame is exactly when the medical cannabis program came into play. And, you know, you can see statistical data of looking at, oh, these people had these prescriptions. Oh, look, these people have these medical cards. Like, it's simple correlation of you can.
Well, and to speak on the cost part too, you know, if you're in Utah and you're like, you know, I want to get a medical cannabis card, but I don't want to pay those fees, that might. And if you're a person who's getting in the car, driving to Colorado or to Nevada, think about the cost that goes into that and how much it's going to cost you to just drive there, get the product, come back. It's way more investment time instead of being able to get your medical card. So if you have chronic pain, you can check out being able to get that and look at all the other defining characteristics of what qualifies for that. But honestly, it's worth it to be able to get that card, and especially any other time, it'd be right now where things are starting to change even more. We'll start seeing a difference out there. Maybe this allows us to have more licenses here for pharmacies. And if we have more pharmacies, we have more consumers. And we have less likability of that rebound effect where people are like, you know, it's not for me. And that's where, like, you know, our podcast comes into there. Like, you're going to learn a lot on how to consume this and how you're not going to have a horrible experience. Like, you know, I mean, recently, somebody you know,
my brother, has been.
I was gonna wait. This is.
He's been. He's just left the local faith here a handful of years ago, and for him, he's been straight laced his entire life. He still is
very much so
straight edge. Doesn't do caffeine. Doesn't do anything. He doesn't like feeling out of control at all. And so he was talking about, he's like, you know, I'd like to try it at least once, see what it was like. And I've got a cousin who also consumes, and she was like, well, let's have a session at my house. So we go over there, and she's got the large version of George Jetson, our bong.
And it's a big ass bong.
It is. So she decides that I brought all of my flour. I let him smell between 10, 12 different flowers, and he picked one out, and he was like, all right, let's try this one. And he ended up taking this big hit, and he really did not like it in the slightest, because within 10, 15 minutes, he was asking, how do I get this to stop in 10 minutes? And I was like, we can't, but we can give you lemon juice. I brought CBD. We're going to do all of this. And then he's still, he didn't like that he felt he wasn't in control.
I think it's because he's so much in control of everything that maybe he wanted that experience, and maybe he got that experience and he didn't, where you don't care. You really don't sweat.
Because that's what he was like, oh man, I don't know how you could work on this. He's like, I can't do complex math problems right now. And I'm like, bro, you don't need to be doing complex math problems right now.
Doing complex math problems anyway.
It's you doing right now.
It's like Friday night, just chill engineer. Out. There's nothing you need to be doing. The whole intent of hanging out here was we're just going to have a good time and just chill. So you don't need to be worrying about, can I do complex math problems or this or that? What you need to do is just relax. But again, it's really hard. How many people are stuck up here that it's so hard to come out of here and just relax. That's why we have anxiety and depression and all this stuff that we live in, because we're not we're always living up here.
Control. That's a huge thing. And quite honestly, that first time I ever tried it was the same type of thing. It was like I was not in control of what was happening around me and what I was seeing. I was like, yeah, when you first feel that moment, right? You're like, oh my gosh, there is something else that is actually controlling me, not the other way around. And this idea that we can control things in our life is just a fallacy, right?
Totally.
It's just a fallacy. So we spend our time thinking about things that are never going to happen because we want to make sure we can control those things, right? Or we worry about things that happened in the past.
And you can't change.
Just so hard for us to stay present in this world, right? In the society that we have, right? And it's just, and I sometimes I don't think people stop to recognize and realize how much has actually changed in our world in just the last 10 to 15 years.
Totally.
With the advent of, the phone, and not just the phone, but the phone from going to a touchscreen phone and to the iPhone and getting fast speed internet and going on from those phases. Like, there's a reason why mental health is at an all-time high here, right? And a lot of it has a strong correlation with when the phone.
Yeah.
And how much that is an important part of our life.
Totally.
An important part of our worth, of who we are, who we think we're supposed to be. And we get so caught up in that cycle, right? And why is mental health a problem? We're trying to be all these things that all these other people that are just living fake lives
are doing. And we're trying to keep up with the Joneses and be like, oh, I'm just like them.
Yeah, or you worry about other shit. Like, I mean, I get into conspiracy theories or into deep science and stuff like that. And if you knew the shit that's going on with the planet and you're realizing that some of this isn't because of the dirty air, you're like, oh shit, some crazy stuff. Like the stuff we used to consume, like it
makes you feel anxious.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you got to get in a bunker.
Get a bunker.
You got to get a bunker.
For the end of the world or some shit.
We're in a good place, actually, if we look at the models and stuff like that. Like, if anything happened, we're in a good place. But even then, though, it's like, we shouldn't have total access to that information in a moment. It's an overload. Your body gets hit so much that you just can't stop worrying. I go through my YouTube feed. It is natural disasters, cataclysms, fucking mushrooms, and like cannabis stuff. Like, it's a sprinkles of happiness with tons of fucking negativity. And it's so hard. But one of the great things that cannabis does for you, like I was telling you just a little while ago, since I've been going back, I don't have to use as much to what you were talking about, where, you use just a third of it. You're just using a tiny bit and you're still going to get a great effect. But I got done smoking, came back inside, and I just played with my kids. I just had these like awesome conversations with my son about like the Renaissance and the French Revolution, because he's playing Assassin's Creed Unity and it's during the French Revolution, and we just got deep into the history of that. And it was so cool because my mind is going so fast all the time in the world we're in, and I don't get to slow down and just enjoy the presence of others. But with the gift of cannabis, I absolutely do. Like, I can just chill out and have a conversation.
Yeah, it's like, we are prisoners of our thoughts, right? And like, cannabis is the liberator.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, because you can just stop all the things, right?
Yeah.
And nothing matters except right now, right here. Right. And those are the things when you talk about mental health awareness, right? And those abilities to even have people in your life that you can share these conversations with, right? And feel connected to people and not feel alone, right? How we live in a world with 7 billion people. How can one person feel alone? That's sad to think about, right?
Yeah, but yet so many of us do.
Especially in this world where you can connect with anybody anywhere in the world. But, we
still feel distant.
We still have this difficulty talking about real stuff, right? Real stuff that hurts us, right? Real pain, because we're ashamed that people look down on us and they have these perfect lives, and I'm saying that here, but everybody's life sucks, man. Come on.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier, right? Yeah. You're going to have to experience pleasure and pain. and one can't exist without the other. And it's not always continuous. It's not always going to be continuous. And that's where, you get that reprieve when you get to puff, because it really takes it like in perspective. You just kind of back up, right? Get too angry. I mean, how many arguments has cannabis kept me from?
I know it's kept me from endless, like so many of them that I'm like, I need to go smoke. Yeah. And I will step outside and I will go puff on something. And, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes. And then I come back in and I'm like way more level-headed. And usually I'm apologetic of like, hey, I'm sorry, I was frustrated. And that wasn't like, let's have a normal discussion. Let's try and approach this and figure this out. Because when you can step away from the emotion that's attached to it, you can see things for what they are. And usually it's not as big of an issue as we're feeling it is. And it's like, you don't have this backpack full of rocks on your back. You can actually take it off and go, hey, shit, no, everything's actually okay.
Yeah.
We just need to like be right here.
Yeah, we've had we recently talked. We had an argument at one time, and we rarely do have an argument, but it was just weird, and that goes to say too that remember that cannabis, there's so many different strains, so it's so much safer than being able to go on a medication. They go, okay, in about 4 to 6 weeks you're going to start feeling it. Like, holy shit, wait a minute, I need it now.
Or 4 to 6 weeks before you start feeling normal.
Yeah, when you get off of it. Right. And it's like, okay, well, you've got to kind of have this toss up, but you literally can switch from one to another. So, our listeners know that. Like, use lemon juice. Use lemon juice to be able to kind of dull it down where you're just like, oh, I don't want this ride to go on anymore. Cool. Get off it. And then go try a different one. Don't get afraid of it, because it's something that you just have to figure out what's right for your system. Like right now, the first time I smoked this strain, dude, it's got me the same way. It was like when we were talking to, was it Desiree?
Yeah, Des.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking to Des, and she was like really intense. And I'm just sitting there going, fuck, this is a really intense conversation. that was really high. And I was just like, oh, I felt so good. And it's still, even now, like, it is almost for a sativa strain, dude, like, I'm feeling pretty good.
Oh, man.
It's great. Yeah.
Like, I was playing basketball this morning and I strained my calf, right? I literally have like a bandage. I got Dragon Balm on it. I'm like old man up over here. I'm surprised you guys didn't smell something. Like,
no, I didn't.
Is that
at
eucalyptus and menthol? What is it?
No, bro, I've been, you missed, my cane. I've been walking with a cane for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. But
so I smell like that.
Nothing right now, right? I twitch like almost limping, right? So, but just these little things, right? And you learn about the plant and learn that it has anti-inflammatory properties, right? Antifungal properties, antiviral properties, and you're like, wait, it's an analgesic effect as well too. Hold on, I think I kind of want some. Right?
Yeah, dude.
I'd try that.
But yeah, it has all it has all these anecdotal evidences that it provides all these reliefs, right? Oh, hey, it's been shown to shrink cancer cells or tumor cells in rats. It's like,
but it's only anecdotal because there's not like clinical studies behind it,
because it's illegal.
But yet, but if you actually look and took every person who uses cannabis and they submitted their data, I bet you would see that anecdotal evidence would be showing across the board of like, oh wait, no, it helps here. The only difference is it's not funded by the government or a massive corporation. It's just individual human studies of.
Doesn't have that FDA seal of approval, which, man, that credibility is just kind of.
I trust them so much.
It's almost like having a name brand tag on your clothes.
I just feel like it's like having a BBB accreditation. It's like, hey, I paid for that.
Yeah. But you know what? I think people are waking up, right?
Totally.
People are waking up and realizing that there's a lot more to the world than, what we've been told. And that is the flip side of access to information, right? Now, you don't have to just listen to one narrative that's on your TV from the news anchor or from the one writer in the newspaper, and that's your world. Yeah. Growing up in Utah, I didn't know anything outside of this world. Who was reporting on what was happening in China, right? And what was going on in other countries? Like, didn't know. Whatever was in my encyclopedia, that was my view of the world, right?
Totally.
So now flash forward, boom. Like, it's just completely different. And we've got to stop and, one, give ourselves some grace to realize, like, dang, man, that really is different. And you start to feel like, I sound like an old head right now, right?
Yeah, dude, for
Things
sure.
have changed that drastically. It really, really has, right? And I think COVID certainly, forced us to rethink and reevaluate and sit with ourselves a little bit more. And for some, they came out really clear. For others, maybe it was not such a good thing, right? But I think those are the opportunities where we have to really help provide one of the solutions towards our problems towards mental health, because it is a trending problem, right? And there are now enough data and studies out there that show the direct correlation and the impact that the sooner you give a child access to a phone, a tablet, right, that connection to social media, the more likely they're going to have mental health issues. It's a correlation, right? But correlation does not always mean causation.
Yeah.
But connect the dots together.
Yeah.
We know plenty. I mean, we are all guilty of it ourselves and getting sucked into the hole and just like, how did I get? Why am I worrying about this?
Yeah.
What?
How did I spend this much
Yes.
time? Like, I just was taking a poop, and now it's been like 45 minutes.
My wife's knocking on the door. What are you doing in there? What?
Sugar honey iced tea. Oh.
I don't know. I can also get there when I'm pretty high, though. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can sit down just like, and then when my leg goes numb, I'm like, oh, wait, how long have I been in here? Why am I down this rabbit hole? But it's seriously, it's a great uniter, and it's a great way to be able to slow down and just enjoy the world as it is. Like there's a reason why like hardcore hippies are potheads, because they don't want to deal with the busyness of life.
Unnecessary.
They want to disconnect from the matrix.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, just like you, man, I like being plugged into the matrix. I like the intricacies of our society and our culture and the world as it is in a technological age. But at the same time, I like to take a break too. And I want to take a break often. I don't ever want to be plugged in 100% of the time. And I feel for those who feel like they have to be, and that they have no outlet, and that there is no change. So, yeah. Man, it's
been awesome.
This has been great, man. Thank you so much for being able to come on the show, share a lot about you and why you're so passionate about the medical cannabis state that we are in, and why you're so passionate about being able to bring this to so many different patients right now in our state. Where should we be going to look up more about you, man? Can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to Dragonfly Wellness. You can learn more about just our medical cannabis program in general. Our state has plenty of incredible resources. Go to medicalcannabis.utah.gov. Like, we have a really, really great program here, but we just need people to participate in the program as opposed to just, I can get it elsewhere. I can get the same thing. It really isn't the same thing.
No, it's not.
It really isn't.
And we've been really impressed because the difference in like quality and experience has been fantastic. The CBG strain alone, there's not been anything like that.
Nope. I've never experienced anything like that. And, dare I say, even for being a desert strain, this tastes really close to Cali strain, dude.
You wouldn't even know if you walked in the facility where you were, right? So at the end of the day, our some of our team comes from California, right? Like, they've been doing this for a long time. We didn't just pluck people out, Look, we didn't just have a bunch of Vietnamese people in the back room like a sweatshop. Cannabis. We found people that were real professionals that came out that have been doing this for a long time. And if you've been doing it for a long time, you have a care and a passion for the plant, because you're willing to do something
for sure
that nobody wanted to give you credit. I waited until it was legal and I could go to my family and not be shamed by them, but still got shamed because that's just how Asian families roll. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to give up your 20-year career working with Fortune 500 companies to sell weed?
What's wrong with you?
It's a really good opportunity to make change in our community, Mom.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So, but it's crazy. And that 180 flip, like, my parents are huge supporters, right? I mean, they talk to our families about it. They're very proud about what we're doing here. So that alone, right, when we worry about the judgment and the stigma of others, it's pretty crazy. When
I bet
you can
that's
be
a
your
huge
true,
testament.
authentic self and not have to tiptoe around my parents, lie and hide and stuff. And there's so many people who have to struggle through that. And those are challenges, right? And for us to be able to have a platform and a voice and a platform to show that, look, we can talk about these things and there are other solutions to these things, right? Not just to the same medications you're taking over and over and over just because your doctor said it, right? And again, cannabis isn't for everybody. It's not.
Totally.
Yeah.
But you should be able to have access to try it just like all these other drugs that are out there.
Yeah, man. No. And thank you for the example you set, being open about it. You know, we do that. We encourage everybody else to do it. So they're not only their friends and family, wherever, but the areas that they live, their neighborhoods, their society. Like, you shouldn't treat it as a stigma. We don't. We wear it loud and proud. And I have never been like, oh, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Cannabis.
It's usually just sparked more conversations.
Yeah. And they go, I want to learn more about it. So it really helps. But man, thank you for being that example here. Thank you for being on the show, and thanks for all your hospitality and showing us everything that you guys do and why we love you guys so much.
Man, it's an honor, guys. Thank you for helping support our mission towards normalizing this, right? So that way we can all just be healthy, happy people live in one community, not judging each other. And thank you guys for allowing me into your home and into your studio.
Brother, I'm pretty sure we're going to have you back on for another episode.
Oh, hell yeah, dude, for sure.
I got sick of me, man.
You know?
Nah, no way, man.
Yeah.
I want to go meet George Jetson. So.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And to everyone at home, we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, Patreon supporters, we absolutely love you. And tune in next week for another episode of The Sesh.